Thank you for coming.
Okay.
Ready? Good evening, everyone. Hello. May I have your attention, please? Good evening. My name is Mei Hong, the Executive Director of the Chinese Culture Connection. On behalf of our collaborators, we have many collaborators. You can see the logos on our banner right here at the bottom of the page. Thank you so much for coming to this event. I also want to shout out to our presenters, our panelists, to share their pros and cons about the ballot question. And I know that we are here to learn about this. This year's election is very important for us. So important that we get to know what we are voting for. I also would like to express our heartfelt thanks to our moderator, Yawu Miller. He's a retired editor for the Bay State banner. And he is a very conscient, I would say, journalist. And thank you for continuing to support this event. He was here last time when we had our first forum meeting the candidates in August, and he did such a great job. We invited him to come back again, and I hope you will continue to support our event in Malden. I also like to thank the City of Malden for opening the space for us to congregate tonight. And please note that tonight's forum is not a debate. It's an informational session to help us know about the ballot questions. And later on, we also will have a Karen Chen from the Chinese Progressive Association to share about the election. And anyhow, voting is our fundamental right and obligation as citizens. The more we are able to engage and participate in what's going on in our community, the better our voice will be stronger, and that we will be able to elect the right people to serve us rather than the other way around. Unfortunately, today that we see a lot of situation is quite in such a way so that we need to reverse that situation. We are the voters. We are the people who make decisions, and they help to execute that, not the other way around. So without further ado, I would like to pass this mic to Karen Chen for tonight's just a little brief introduction about the election. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Pay attention.
Press it longer. Oh, okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. It's dark out, and you're here. I'm just going to do a little bit of reminders about the different timelines for this election. So you probably have heard, right, from different campaigns, early voting started on Saturday, but it will go until November 1st. And if you live in Malden, here, City Hall is where you actually vote early. And the hours varies on different days of the week. Sometimes you can vote until 7 p.m., sometimes 5 p.m. So if you think you're gonna be away on November 5th, and or that you don't wanna wait until the 5th, you wanna vote early, come by City Hall. And if you have not registered to vote, but you're eligible to vote, you still can do that. You have 5 more days. So if you have a friend who is a citizen, okay, who's over 18, haven't registered yet, please get them registered. Like May said, we want to actually, right, to vote so that we have a stake in the future of this city, this Commonwealth, and this country. So make sure your friends know the 26th is the last day to register to vote. And if you know that, or that yourself, you're like, I don't know if I want to go out to vote on the 5th, you can still apply for vote by mail. But you have to do it by the 29th before 5 p.m. So you still have a lot of time. And there's like, why all these options? It's because we want to make sure every person who's eligible to vote will vote. And this is how democracy works. So, and I'm just going to go talk a little bit about what will be on your ballot. There'll be a lot of things. If you actually participated on, primary. So primary elections this year is all like partisan, right? Depending which party you are, if you're unenrolled, you can pick the party. So everything you voted for this year in the primary will be on your ballot for the general election. So on your ballot, there's going to be lots of pages. I think 4 pages. Okay, well, 2 sheets, but both sides, okay? So don't forget to turn your ballot to the back. So we'll have president on your ballot. Everyone know what the president does, right? Okay, do you want me to explain it? No. All right, so, you probably heard about the news, all the different positions, there's debates, the president, vice president, so get your, information from news sources. And then besides the president, there's also U.S. Senate race. How many senates do we have in each state? How many? 2, right? So one of them is up for election. So Elizabeth Warren's seat is up for election. And then U.S. representative. Do you know who your congresswoman is? Who is it? Catherine Clark, right? So she will be on the ballot. So there's also governor's council. Does anybody know what a governor's council does? I think it says counselor on your ballot, but it's governor's council. So I think that last time someone in the audience were able to answer all of the questions, but I'll say it very quickly. So there are 8 governor's councils in Massachusetts. They meet weekly to advise the governor on what? Mostly around nominations of judges. And we know that some states, they elect the judges. Here, we nominate them and confirm them. That's one of the major duties of the governor's council. And then you have state senator and state representative. Do you know who your state senator is? All of Malden only have 1. Jason Lewis, that's right, he's on the ballot. So, also, this would be a good time for you to make requests to your state senator on policy issues or other things. And then your state representative, Malden has a few of them. So depending on where you live, so you can look it up actually on the Malden election website, who is your current state rep. And then there's Register of Deeds, very important if you own property, they record all the different property transactions, and it's elected. I'm not sure why it's the elected position, but it is. It will be on your ballot. And I think that, does Malden have school committee as well? I think so. And you can also look up, because it's also by where you live, you can look up at the Malden election website to see which ballot, who's on your school committee or who's on the ballot for school committee. And then the very last part of the ballot, this is why we're here today. There's 5 ballot questions. If they pass, they become law. So there are many different ways you can advocate for change. One of them is ballot questions. If everyone remember, 2 years ago, there's a ballot question called Fair Share Amendment, and basically taxing income over 1 million. And because it passed, money actually is put into education and transportation. So people who have been advocating for low-income fare, now if your income is 200% federal poverty line or below, you can actually apply for low-income fare. And so instead of paying a monthly pass of $90, you will pay $30. Actually, the governor came here on primary day to actually announce the low-income fare, and that is because people came out and vote on the ballot questions. So, and I just have this slide up for presidential candidates. Mainly, I want to point out some of the transliteration for the candidates. I know that some of you guys here were part of the fight to make sure that candidate's name is written in Chinese. So I just want to, actually, I'm going to say this part in Chinese because I think for those who don't read Chinese, it doesn't quite make sense. 咁我就係想講咧，就係話哈里斯嚇，咁咧就係總統。我知道咧，你睇報紙有時咧，佢係寫係賀錦麗嘅，但喺呢個選票咧，佢係寫字哈里斯。咁仲有另外咧，共和黨嘅候選人川普，咁咧有時咧係啲報紙係寫川普，呢度咧係寫住係特朗普嚇，咁所以咧就係想啲講中文嘅人留意呢樣嘢。And so also the election department, we notice the transliteration. Just make sure the Chinese voter know that, the Trump goes a different, use a different name sometimes on newspapers or reference to differently in the newspaper, and Harris as well. So we can move to the next one. Okay. Again, your ballot, make sure you look at both sides, okay? And if you're gonna do vote by mail, you will be doing the election department a huge favor if you make sure that whatever you get, even if you decide not to vote on some of the ballot questions, return both pages in your ballot, because you want to make sure the vote is counted, and it makes it easier for them because they have to feed it into a machine to count it. Okay. All right, and if you are, earlier I talked about, who's in your district and all that, you can find out all that information, or even want to help a friend out at www.wheredoivotema.com. So you just put in your address, your number, and then the name of the address, and if your address has a street or avenue, you have to use the drop-down menu, and you put in the city, and that will show up, like, who is the currently elected in your district. And you can also preview your ballot as well. And vote by mail, right? Making voting more accessible. It has in all 3 different languages on the City of Malden election website. So I think there's more, but I know that here we have Chinese, Spanish, and English. So, so you can actually get that on the website as well. You can request it from the City of Malden, which will take you to the Secretary of State website. And then, ta-da, this is where you find your sample ballot. I should have done the QR code, but okay. So here, vote by mail. If you are doing vote by mail, I know the last day to request is the 29th. If you want to make sure that City Hall receive your ballot, you can do it at the drop-off box right outside of the City Hall. It's blue, and if you don't really know, you could just when you walk out, you can check it out. It's a little blue box. I know that the City Hall use it for other drop-off as well, but you have to make sure if you have a friend helping you drop it off, make sure you do it before 8 p.m. on the 5th. In order for your ballot to be counted. And then if you're actually mailing back, it has to be postmarked by the 5th, right? Or, and they have to receive it by 3 days. If you're cutting it really close, I would recommend you to drop it off at the drop-off box in case, right, the post office has delays. So I think that is all I have for now. And then now we're going to turn to the most important part of the forum.
Good evening and welcome to our 2024 Ballot Questions Forum. My name is Yawu Miller. Again, I'm the former managing editor of the Bay State Banner, and I'm serving as the MC for this event. I'll go over a few ground rules before we turn it over to the panelists. We will have 5 panelists speaking in favor of the ballot questions. There will also be 2 coalition members who will read the statements from the opposition to the ballot questions. Please be aware that these coalition members, just to the right of Karen, we have, Karen Lynch, and in the 10, and then also Suad Akib in green. They are they're just reading the opposition statements. They are not representing the actual opposition to the ballot questions. Also, so they're going to give the opposition, okay? So here's a few ground rules for the audience members. As you're listening to them, we want people to avoid interrupting people while they're speaking. Please use active listening. Pay attention to the speakers and refrain from talking, whispering, or distracting others. Please keep cell phones silent and avoid using them during this forum. Okay, and then for questions, you've been given a slip of paper to write out your questions at the beginning of this forum. If you don't have a slip of paper, you want a slip of paper, please raise your hand. Staff will come around twice to collect them during the forum. Once after the proponents have spoken and once the coalition members have given the opposition statements. Also, for everyone who's joining online, welcome. You can post questions in the chat box, and then they will be transcribed and given to the people, the representatives of the ballot questions. Let's see. That's the ground rules. Please stay for the whole forum. There will be a raffle drawing for everyone who's here at the end of the event, so please stay for that. For the panelists, everyone who's representing a ballot question, we ask that you please stay on topic and address the specific ballot questions or issues being discussed. Please avoid personal attacks or remarks about other people's positions. Please provide clear and concise answers, and please be mindful of the set times. You have 90 seconds, a minute and a half for an introduction, and then 3 minutes for the information session, and then you'll be given 1 minute for closing. And now we'll hear from the proponents on these ballot questions. The ballot questions are in order of their appearance on the ballot. Number 1 is the state auditor's authority to audit the legislature. Question number 2 is elimination of the MCAS as a high school graduation requirement. Question number 3 is unionization for transport network drivers. Question 4 is limited legalization and regulation of certain natural psychedelic substances. And question number 5 is minimum wage for tip workers. So we're going to go right into it, and we'll start off with question 1. Gary Yu, who's the president of the New England Chinese American Alliance, will represent question 1. Yep, there we go. Thanks.
Hello. Hey, good evening, everyone. 大家好. My name is Gary. I'm the president of the New England Chinese American Alliance. So today for here, we just represent for the question 1. So New England Chinese American is the create in 2021. We are a 501c4 nonprofit organization. So we are focused the civil engagement and for helping for our Chinese community be better. 好高興見到大家 Modern 好多朋友。我係 Gary， 我係嗰個新英格蘭嗰個華人協會嘅會長，高興見到大家。
Hi, can you hear me? Oh, can you hear me? Yes. Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am Lisa Geisbond. I'm the executive director of Citizens for Public Schools, a statewide public education advocacy organization. And I'm proud to be part of the broad grassroots coalition that's supporting question 2. Question 2 is very straightforward. It would eliminate the requirement that students pass 3 MCAS exams in English, math, and science in order to graduate from high school. And if it passes, students would graduate from high school based on passing all of their classes and showing that they have met the state's high academic standards by doing so. So after 20 years, it's time to turn the page on the MCAS graduation requirement, as most other states have already done, for two main reasons. State graduation tests don't increase student academic achievement or employment rates, and they harm all students by narrowing the curriculum and taking time away from learning. And they especially harm our most vulnerable students, students with disabilities, English learners, and yes, so, and I have my friend Paul McClure.
Thank you, Lisa. My name is Paul. I'm here in favor, representing the Question 2 campaign, the campaign to eliminate the graduation requirement from the MCAS test. Thank you all for being here. I'm here this evening because our students across the state should be judged on more than a one-time high-stakes standardized test. And over the course of working on this campaign now for 16 months, I've met parents, students, and educators all across the state that tell me and describe to me the harm of the MCAS test, and specifically the graduation requirement that goes along with it. Just to be very clear, the MCAS test itself is not going anywhere. All the diagnostic tools that go along with it and all of the incentives that it can be used for, so all of the accountability that comes with the test and everything like that, and you could still hold educators accountable, hold different districts accountable, hold schools accountable. We're just not going to be punishing the students that don't pass the test any longer, and that's why we're here, and we appreciate your possible support. Thank you.
That's on, okay. Good evening, my name is Pablo Ruiz. I'm the political director for SEIU 32BJ. We are a union of primarily janitors, that is office cleaners in and around Boston. 32BJ, along with the Chinese Progressives, along with the International Association of Machinists, have been organizing and fighting for Uber and Lyft drivers for the last 2+ years. The idea is that these workers, and the idea of the Yes on 3 campaign is that these workers currently do not have the ability to form a union. They don't have the same right because they are not classified, the type of worker that would need to be in order to form their union. So we know that, drivers are made up of 70,000, almost 80,000 actually in the Commonwealth. And, they help us get to work, they help us get to our appointments. And we also know that drivers are on the receiving end of an ever-changing workplace condition that affects their ability to earn a stable income for their families. Workers, we hear many top complaints. Workers are facing, rampant deactivation. That is, they are fired from the platforms. They are constantly receiving a smaller percentage of the fees. And we're here to ask today for your yes vote on question 3 so that rideshare drivers can have the right to form a union.
Before our next panelist goes, I just want to acknowledge that Councilor Karen Colon-Hayes is here. Thanks for your attendance.
Hello, my name is Graham Moore. I'm a director of the Yes on 4 campaign. The reason I am here is because mental health care in our state does not work very well. Many people dealing with severe distress, particularly veterans who experienced combat, people with cancer who may have only months or years left to live, are dealing with a lot of anxiety and pain that they cannot address. Hundreds of people in this state are dying by suicide. I lost my best friend to suicide, and I was a patient. What Question 4 will do is make 5 plant medicines that have been used in other countries for thousands of years available here in clinics. And it will also stop people from being arrested for using these substances, but there will be no stores. It will not be like cannabis. Research has shown that taking these plants even just 1 or 2 times can make people feel better for years. So I am asking for people's support to make non-addictive plant medicines available for people in need. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is James Wu, and I'm here on behalf of the Yes on 5 campaign. I'm here to urge people to vote yes on question 5, which would increase the tipped minimum wage for tipped workers across Massachusetts from $6.75 to $15 an hour. This question is fair for workers who deserve a living wage and a stable paycheck instead of relying on tips, which are incredibly volatile every day and from week to week. This is fair for all the employers across Massachusetts who are already paying their workers a fair minimum wage, a fair living wage, and this is especially fair to consumers whose tips should go towards good service and not as a subsidy for low wages paid by restaurant owners who could afford to pay their workers their fair share. So I thank you everyone for being here. Urge you to all vote yes on 5, and I'm sure we'll talk more about the reasons later on.
So thank you to all the yes vote representatives, and now we'll hear again from coalition members who are going to read the opposition to the ballot questions.
Good evening. My name is Karen Lynch. I'm a collaborator with this event with Mass Senior Action Council, but I'm speaking as just a Malden citizen about the no's on question 1. That is about the state auditor auditing the legislature, the senators and the representatives. First of all, it will violate separation of powers that is in the Massachusetts Constitution. The auditor would become a potentially influential participant in legislative processes, and thus just do mine today. Be back later. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Suadaki from the American Association for Arab Women. I will be listing the opposition for question 2 and 4 tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to go back to the opposition for. We're going to the question. The yes proponents now each has 3 minutes to outline their positions. So we'll start again with question 1 with Gary.
喂，大家想我講廣東話定係普通話？廣東話係嘛？係咪啊？你人多我哋就快啲嗬。咁其實係咁嘅，多謝大家咧。我哋今日過來就參加呢個會議就係好重要，因為我哋參與投票係我哋行使我哋公民權利嘅最重要嘅一個表現。咁咧，第一個問題係今年我哋選票第一個問題點解要選yes 呢？係因為我哋覺得。我哋納稅人用咗啲錢交俾政府啦之後咧，我哋希望咧政府可以去審計嗰啲立法部門嘅。咁咧審計長咧，我哋嘅審計長咧，佢就希望咧就有一個權利咧，去將嗰個去審計我哋嘅立法機構。咁個立法機構咧就包括我哋嘅參議院同眾議院啦。佢認為咧，我哋麻州而家嘅立法機構咧係全美國最唔透明嘅機構之一。咁咧，佢哋將我哋啲納稅人啲錢咧用喺其他唔透明嘅地方咧，俾我哋就 唔了解佢哋啲錢用咗去邊度，所以咧佢就要求就審計我哋嘅嗰個立法機構。咁咧立法機構咧，因為俾審計佢哋唔會願意俾來審計啦。咁咧所以咧佢就發動攞全麻州嘅人去收集簽名來支持咧今次個提案咧可以放喺我哋個選票上面。第一個選票就係，所以咧我哋好多唐人我哋都幫去收集嗰啲簽名，超過6000個人簽名咧，就所以咧今次我哋就可以喺今次選舉上面可以選，我哋係咪要求將嗰個選票即係俾佢哋審計我哋嘅立法機構？咁咧我就希望你哋可以投 yes 去支持，俾我哋納稅人啲每一分錢，我哋知道佢哋用去邊度啦。我哋政府驚政府唔透明，多謝大家。
Hello. Okay, so I'll translate for Gary. So, we're urging voters to vote yes on question 1 because, the money for the Commonwealth is actually from taxpayers. We feel like taxpayers should have a right to know where money has spent or how the legislators decide on money. So, so even we're in Massachusetts, is a very liberal state, but it's actually one of the least transparent state legislatures. So the auditor believed that there should be more transparency within the state house. And that, what does it mean you audit the state legislature? So we know that in the state, there's the House and the Senate, so it's actually auditing both. So voters have a chance to actually dig deep into the details of how they have used their money. So actually the auditor had made this request to the state legislature, and they didn't agree to it. And that's why the auditor decided to take the route of a ballot question so that the voters can decide, right, how much transparency the state legislatures should have. So we know that voters approve it because we collected a lot of signatures for it to be on the ballot, so that we hope that you will vote yes on 1 so that we can have a more transparent, accountable state house.
I think I'm going to have he's giving me the laptop. Okay. Thank you. Of course, thanks. Okay, yes, it's on. Okay, so vote yes on 2. What will question 2 do? Question 2 will end the use of the MCAS exams as a graduation requirement from high school. What will question 2 not do? It will not eliminate the MCAS tests or our widely lauded state educational standards. It will put the MCAS scores in perspective as part of the way we look at how students are learning and whether or not they're ready to graduate from high school and be successful in whatever they want to do after high school. Why vote yes on question 2? That we've had the MCAS graduation requirement since 2003, and we've learned that it's a failed and outdated policy. The MCAS tests don't measure a lot of really important skills that students need for their lives after high school, like creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, the ability to collaborate with others, to communicate well. And it has not brought quality or equity to Massachusetts public schools. Teachers and students will tell you that MCAS takes away from the joy of learning. Teaching to the test, testing and retesting all take valuable time away from teaching and learning, and this harms all students, but it harms them by narrowing the curriculum, dumbing it down, and again, taking joy out of learning. The graduation requirement is not a tool for equity. Graduation tests don't ensure that low-income students or English learners or students with disabilities get what they need to learn and thrive. It just guarantees that if they don't get what they need, they're guaranteed not to get a high school diploma. And that's why most other states have abandoned this policy. Massachusetts is an outlier. It will soon be one of just 8 states that still use tests to determine who graduates from high school. Who doesn't graduate because of the MCAS? A recent report from the Annenberg Institute at Brown University found that 85% are English learners or are students with learning disabilities. And for all of these reasons, that's why we have a broad coalition of organizations representing educators, parents, and community groups that are all yes on 2. We have more than 60, I think more than 70. We're up to 70 legislators who are yes on 2, including Senator Jason Lewis, who's the co-chair of the Education Committee, made a really great statement. I'm running out of time. And your senator also. You can read what he said. Regardless of the outcome of question 2, MCAS will continue to be administered in Mass public schools, including grade 10. However, standardized tests are imperfect and cannot measure the full scope of skills, knowledge, and competencies. Just here are some of our congresspeople who are yes on 2, 34 local resolutions, and I'll stop there and look forward to taking questions when that time comes.
Great. So once again, I'm here to talk about yes on question 3. So as we briefly mentioned before, this would give Uber and Lyft drivers, rideshare drivers, the chance to unionize, right? The option to be able to join to a union. The voters across the Commonwealth will make this decision. As I mentioned, more than 70,000 drivers. Of course, we want people to have a voice on the job. Of course, we think that leading to the ability to negotiate, right, for better pay, better working conditions, and also we think that that will lead to an ability to defend themselves against these rampant deactivations that we've heard of. So likewise, we've got a host of endorsements, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, we've got Congresswoman McGovern, the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, has been with us from the beginning. And of course, would be remiss if I didn't ask for you to follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitter. The account is there as well. And I just want to hold a little bit of our time so that you can hear directly from a driver who's living this unfortunate situation, every day.
Oh, you have to turn on him and then me.
Good evening. My name is Alan Deng. 我做呢副司機做咗10幾年㗎啦。今日喺度呼籲大家投票支持選票問題3，投 yes 票。Thank you.
My name is Ellen. I've been a Lyft driver for over 10 years. I'm here today to ask all the voters in Massachusetts to vote yes on question 3.
咁我做司機咧就做好耐，以前咧就都能夠養家活兒，但係而家隨住買車嘅成本啊、保險啊、油費啊不斷上升，但係我哋嘅工資咧就不斷咁下調。公司喺度壓榨我哋，但係我哋係冇一個機構去同公司斡旋同埋爭取我哋嘅福利。我好希望能夠成立一個工會，係幫我哋爭取一個權益。多謝。
So, when I first started as a Lyft driver, actually I can make a pretty decent living. But as, cost of living continue to rise, on the other hand, the money we're getting from Lyft is getting lower and lower. So, and for the drivers, in order for us to actually get anything changed, it's very difficult to talk to Lyft or Uber individually. So we really need an organization, a union, so that we can actually, negotiate with the company so that we have a chance to have a better working condition. So I'm here to ask you to vote yes on 3.
咁我再一次呼籲大家投支持問題3嘅票，投 yes 票。Thank you very much.
Please vote yes for all the drivers in Massachusetts. Thank you. It's good, right? I think he lost his train of thought.
Sorry, everyone, this is technical. Thank you for your patience.
We'll get there.
Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Hold on. Yeah, so thank you all for welcoming the Yes on 4 campaign. As I said before, mental health care is not working very well, and many people are struggling, particularly veterans. And existing treatments do not work very well. So why do we want this option? Many people have already been helped, and research from top medical institutions shows that these plant medicines can be very effective. Our campaign has been endorsed by over 200 medical professionals, including psychiatrists and instructors at Harvard Medical School. And the FDA has said that early clinical evidence shows one of the substances in our measure is more effective or appears more effective than other substances. This fall, you all, by voting yes, have an opportunity to bring a new option for people in severe distress to make them healthier and not dependent on daily medication, because these substances people take usually once or twice in a year, not every day. What this does is it creates a system where people can access this care in a controlled setting in clinics. Those rules will be decided by experts appointed by the Attorney General, the Governor, and the Treasurer. In addition to that, as I said before, it ends arrests of people using these substances in general. 8 cities and towns in Massachusetts already have this policy of not arresting people. Those cities include Medford right next door, and it hasn't been a problem with public health. What this does not do is allow people to sell these substances to be used without supervision. It is not like cannabis or alcohol. The controlled centers require screening and oversight. And this program has already been implemented in 2 states, Oregon and Colorado, and it's been found to be safe. So, of course, we'd love to have you get involved in any way you can. And I want to end by talking a little bit more about who supported us. So we have Disabled American Veterans of Massachusetts has endorsed us, representing over 60,000 American veterans. Over 50 elected officials have endorsed us, including Senator Elizabeth Warren. Over 5 city councils have endorsed us. And as I said before, over 200 medical professionals have endorsed us. The last thing I want to say is the opposition mentions a threat about driving. That's never happened anywhere, that this has led to increased accidents. And the study that they will bring up in the opposition statement is not accurate. It contains substances that are not in our measure and does not apply. It's a false statement in the book. Thank you.
Hi again, everyone. So just to go a little bit more in-depth on question 5, it would do two things. The first thing that question 5 would do is it would increase the tipped minimum wage, which right now is $6.75 an hour. For tipped workers, it would slowly increase it over the course of 5 years to $15 an hour before tips. And any tips would continue to be on top of a tipped worker's base wage. The second thing that this would do, it would allow for restaurants and bars to include back-of-house workers who are largely immigrants and people of color in existing tip pools, therefore lifting up all workers in a restaurant. And it would not allow managers or owners to take tips. That's federal law. It's going to be kind of an area of misinformation that you might hear. This question, like I mentioned earlier, is fair. It's fair for workers who deserve a full living wage plus tips on top, and they deserve the economic stability that having a $15 an hour period would bring, and tips can continue to be on top like they are right now. While restaurant employers are required by law to make sure that tipped workers make up to $15 an hour right now, if tips don't make up the rest of it, the restaurant industry is rampant with wage theft, and a lot of workers are not actually seeing their paychecks reflect $15 an hour at least at the end of the week. This is also fair for a lot of the Massachusetts employers, and many small restaurants in Massachusetts already paying their workers a living wage plus tips on top. And they're finding success, they're thriving. There are 7 other states that have a one fair wage plus tips on top already. And in those 7 states, the workers are making more money, period. The restaurant industry is thriving, and small businesses continue to grow. This question has been endorsed by many community organizations across Massachusetts, including several who are here with us tonight, including the Chinese Progressive Association, API's CAN, the API Civic Action Network, AARW, Asian American Resource Workshop, as well as Mass Voter Table, Mass Vote, and Justice at Work, a coalition representing worker centers across Massachusetts. Lastly, I just want to highlight that just recently, UMass Amherst released a report showing that workers in one fair wage states are making better wages. They're seeing that in those one fair wage states, restaurant industry is thriving and restaurant growth is improving and going up. And most importantly, they also show that in these 7 other states, the menu prices are the same as Massachusetts. So prices are not gonna go up drastically like the opposition might want you to think. So lastly, I just urge everyone to vote yes on question 5. It's fair for workers, fair for employers, and fair for consumers. Thank you.
And now, again, we're going to hear from the opposition, from Karen and Suad. And we'll start with Karen on question 1.
Okay. This is about auditing the legislature. The Massachusetts Constitution enables the legislation to govern itself. The audit will violate separation of powers, which is established by the Constitution in Massachusetts. The auditor would become a potentially influential participant in legislative processes. This compromises the auditor carrying out her fundamental constitutional duties as nonpartisan auditor of state government departments and programs. Financial records and accounts are available by the legislators, available by the Comptroller of Commonwealth via, quote, Commonwealth's Financial Records Transparency Platform, which people can get online, I believe. The auditor has also expressed a prejudice against the legislature that may be involved in this. Yeah, that's all I have on question 1.
Question 2.
So question 2 is elimination of MCAS as high school graduation requirements. A no vote would make no change in the law relative to the requirement that a student pass the MCAS in order to graduate high school. Schools may have different standards and requirements for graduation. Some districts may adopt lower standards where students can graduate but may not have the skills needed to succeed in life. If students don't have basic skills in math, English, or science, lowering the standard does not help the students get the skills needed or even identify those students without these skills. Removing the MCAS is the only statewide graduation requirement. We would have less rigorous requirements than states like Mississippi and Alabama. This requirement impacts only a tiny percentage of students. 99% of students can graduate using the 10th grade test results. If they fail, they can take the test multiple times or prove they have an understanding of the material. Individual school districts would have a better understanding of the impact on their students. Many school districts may have very few students impacted. Others might have found a valuable way to identify at-risk students who now have no incentives to take the test. The MCAS graduation requirement is an introduction to the world of certification and accountability all our students will enter after high school. The legislators recently substantially increased funding with a more targeted focus on equity through the Student Opportunity Act. Have we given this enough time to work? With or without passing this question, students who fail to achieve the minimum level of knowledge and skills required a graduate receive the support they need to meet those basics requirements. Should we have a solution in place before we remove these requirements? And if you have more questions, you can always refer to the Massachusetts Informations for Voters 2024 ballot questions. Thank you.
And now question 3.
Question 3 is about the raising the prices for all the, will raise the price for all riders. Only 25% of drivers could bring in the union, where usually it's 30% of the workers. The Special Joint Committee on Initiative Petitions recommends that this would not be the right time to increase to bring in the union. Petitioners recommend not at this time. Drivers received a list of protections and benefits in a settlement made by the Attorney General that went into effect only on August 15th of this year. So there hasn't been too much time to see how they're doing with those initiatives that were voted in by the Attorney General. And also, again, there's more information on the in the booklet. Thank you.
So I go with the question 4. A no vote would make no change in the law regarding natural psychedelic substances. Limited legalization and regulation of certain natural psychedelic substances. The psychedelic substance allowed would be 2 substances found in mushrooms and 3 substances found in plants. Individuals would also be able to grow their own drugs, but within limits. This could create a black market for drugs. Individuals could grow these drugs in an area 12 by 12, which would provide more than enough for personal use. Those who choose to grow their own could also sell their drugs in unregulated markets. If someone is growing their drugs and selling them in an unregulated manner, how will the 15% tax be collected? This could limit the amount of money the state collects. 1 in 3 users of these drugs has admitted to driving while taking the drugs. This law would not change current restrictions on driving under the influence of these drugs. It could be hard for officers to gauge users of these drugs. Driving while under the influence of these drugs has led to an increase in accidents. Towns could limit hours of operations of facilities, but they can't limit facilities from opening in their communities. This law would not allow information to be used in custody cases, even if it convincing evidence that the activities created unreasonable danger to the safety of a minor child. The psychedelic has life-threatening cardiovascular heart failure can occur days after 1 dose. You are asking non-medical people to make decisions on drugs that they are not familiar with and don't understand any side effects. Medical centers selling drugs or running clinics are not required to be run by medical professionals. Thank you. And again, if you have more questions, please refer to Massachusetts Information for Voters 2024 ballots question. Thank you.
And now question 5.
Question 5, by increasing the minimum wage, employers could initiate a tip pool, which includes everyone's tips and then dispersed among all the people in the restaurant. It would cause increased prices on the menu, implementation of a service fee at some places, and a wave of restaurants that close food. This would also increase state taxes on the wait staff. Employees may allow for less staff if labor laws increase, such as taking orders on a tablet rather than a wait staff. And there's much more information in the Massachusetts Information for Voters booklet. Thank you.
Thanks again to our panelists. And now we will have questions from and shortly we'll have questions from the audience. Yeah, people in the audience, you still have a chance to write questions, and also online you can submit questions in the chat if you're joining us online. So I'm going to draw questions at random from each of these ballot questions. It's not necessarily a representative sample of all the questions, but again, we'll start with a question for question 1. So for question 1, a few more questions? Okay. Okay. So first of all, we have a question that's not related to any of the ballot questions. The question is, November 1 is the last day to vote in person. We vote at Malden City Hall. November 1st is a Friday. Isn't Malden City Hall closed on Fridays? Okay, answer. Early in-person voting ends on October 31st, Thursday.
Oops. From
So-
Malden? Huh.
So
Everywhere else
alternatively,
is November 1st.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it says November 1st, but early voting, in-person voting ends in Malden on October 31st, which is a Thursday. Alternatively, you can vote on October 25th, Friday at the police station at 800 Eastern Ave from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. What day is Tuesday, the Tuesday voting day?
November
So
5th.
November 5th is when you vote in person, yeah.
Yeah, so I was wrong. So
Okay.
people can vote on the 1st, but at the station, at the police station instead of
Nov-
City Hall.
Okay, so November,
Right.
well, it says here,
Huh? They don't
you
have
can't
the-
vote on the first, I think the last, it's here, it says the last day is October 31st.
Huh, okay.
All right,
Everywhere else in the state, you can vote on the 1st,
okay,
except for Malden.
so we'll go to the question for
Sorry.
question one. For question one, how will this independent auditing body be selected? And what measures will be put in place to eliminate conflict of interest? Is there anybody who can answer for question one? Yeah, it's a tough question.
Sorry.
I mean, I can take a crack at it. I worked for 2 years in the state auditor's office. And so, I mean, it's the auditor's office itself that does the audits of state functions. So the auditor herself would, and her staff would do audits of the legislature, would not be a independent auditing body. It would be just the auditor herself. And I will go with a question for ballot question two. For question two, what percentage of students are actually impacted by removing the graduation MCAS requirement? And we'll go to.
Yeah, so as you know, it was in both of our remarks, I believe, that last year, about more than 700 students were unable to get their diploma due to the MCAS graduation requirement, which is about 1%. But what I think you should know is that, first of all, our campaign thinks that one student is unable to get their diploma due to this one-time high-stakes test is too many. In addition to that, what you should know about is the 16,000 students who this year, didn't pass the first time around. So now, those students are kind of put into this system of testing where they have to constantly focus on everything but actual schooling, which is figuring out how to retake and retake this test over and over again. So our campaign is for those 750 students, for that 1%, yes. But in addition to that, we are mindful of the fact that schools these days have been kind of overtaken by this high-stakes testing regime and just become these testing factories, and that these students are being set up on a negative trajectory with the fact that these 16,000 students that are now having to get tutored and retake and do all these remedial classes are kind of wasting their time when they should be learning real-world skills and holistic learning and all the other things that we know are good about education and public education. So that, to answer that question, 1%, but you really got to start thinking about the other pieces of it as well, which is a major portion of our campaign and the stories that we keep hearing from parents, students, and educators across the state.
Thank you. And now a question for question three. What will this do to the cost of a rideshare ride versus a cab ride?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I think it's I don't actually know the taxi rates and how they would actually compare. What we do know is that if we can pass yes on question 3, these workers would have a voice. They would be able to negotiate all the things that I mentioned, which would include their salary. And because we know right now the status quo has an ever-changing pay structure. And it's hard to believe that that ever-changing pay structure doesn't trickle down to what passengers are paying now, right? That just the constant changing of it. You heard, right, from Alan before as a driver talking about how these used to be, you know, better paying, and they've only gotten worse and worse and worse. But we hope that this could inject some stability into this transaction. We want it to be stable for the workers and their families who depend on these jobs. So that's what I would, yeah, Karen, please do.
If you have ride on an Uber or Lyft, you know that the prices goes up and down arbitrarily. And actually, the company has so much control on the cost. So I think having a union that will increase the cost is just an excuse. I mean, we know that if there's a union, then we know that the workers can fight for the fair share of pay that they deserve because they incur all of the risk of the job. And Uber and Lyft merely just provide a platform, and that we are seeing, you know, prices are going down and down and down for the drivers. And that's why also the Attorney General, you know, have a settlement with Uber and Lyft. And that's not to increase their pay, it's just stopping a slippery slope, stopping the wages for going down. So this is why, you know, drivers, they don't come together a whole lot, but they come together to say yes on a union because they need a voice.
Thank you. And now a question for ballot question 4. How will law enforcement handle misuse or illegal distribution of psychedelics if this measure passes?
They'll arrest people. So selling these substances on the street are going to stay illegal if this passes. So if somebody wants to sell what they grow in their house, law enforcement can arrest them just as they can arrest people now. So that's the short answer. They'll be arrested.
And
Thank you for the question.
Lastly, we'll hear from question 5. Isn't there a risk that customers might say to themselves that they now don't need to tip, resulting in an overall lower income for tipped workers?
Yeah, so that is a good question, and that is a very common concern we hear. But honestly, restaurants exist in both one fair wage and non-one fair wage states. In all of these states, people are not asking their waiter, how much are you making an hour before I decide how much to tip you? People are tipping the same whether they're in California, in Washington, even in Minnesota, as they are tipping in Massachusetts. So tips are still gonna be there. It is ingrained in our culture here in America. So waiters, bartenders, they're still gonna see tips, whether they're in a one fair wage state, whether they're in Massachusetts without a one fair wage, whether they're in states that are somewhere in between. Tips are still gonna be there. Customers continue to tip the same kind of in all of these states because they want tips to be a reward for good service, as they should be, instead of a subsidy for low wages. And these tipping rates, whether they're in one fair wage states, tipping rates in one fair wage states are actually higher, if not the same as non-one fair wage states, because people are seeing better service from workers who are being paid a living wage, who are being paid fairly for their labor.
Thank you. Do we have time for another round of questions?
Oh, wait, Karen wanted to chime in.
I also want to say that, you know, the question about the tips, currently, I think that people know that 15 is the minimum wage. A living wage is closer to $20. So that means that a waiter has to make $13.25 in tips. If you're a consumer, that means that you're been subsidizing the employers for many, many years. But if we pass one fair wage, just if you tip $5, your server will make $20 an hour. So think about it, right? Bringing home, okay, let's see, what's $13.25 versus $20. So that's the difference. And I think that every time that we raise the minimum wage, people argue that the sky is going to fall down. We have raised the minimum wage 5 times until 2013. There's still businesses that are surviving. So I just wanted to, people to think about, who are you voting for? Is it the employers or is it the workers? And also for, question 2, I didn't take the MCAS. I think I turned out fine. I graduated in 1997 in high school.
Should we do another round of questions or closing statements? You can do like 2 more questions. Okay, randomly 2 more questions. Okay. Okay, I'm shuffling, and here we go. Question 3. Why does the public have to approve this union, but hasn't had to approve other unions?
Thank you. So currently under federal law, these types of workers do not have the right to form a union. That federal law is the National Labor Relations Act, and the National Labor Relations Board has determined that these workers are not employees. They have determined that they are independent contractors. They do not have a right to form a union because of that. So in Massachusetts, what we are looking for is a fix, similar to the fix that Massachusetts has done for in-home health aides, otherwise known as personal care attendants. Massachusetts has also conducted a similar fix for in-home child care providers. Both of those types of workers did not have the ability to form their union until Massachusetts made that fix, and we are looking for the same fix so that these drivers who carry all the risk, these drivers who pay for all the maintenance, these drivers who pay for all the gas out of their own pockets have a chance to form their union and negotiate a contract for better working conditions as well as better wages.
Thank you. Now, a question for question number 5. How will question 5 affect restaurants, particularly in Malden?
Okay, mic is on. So thank you for the question. And in Malden, workers in Malden restaurants will, see a raise over the course of 5 years if question 5 passes. And you might even see more small businesses growing in Malden, just like in all the other one fair wage states. They've seen small businesses, especially small business restaurants, grow at a faster rate than non-one fair wage states. So more restaurants, more workers, less turnover for workers within restaurants.
Thank you. And now our panelists will have an opportunity to give closing statements. Panelists, you have 1 minute each for your statements, and we'll go back to question 1.
Okay, thank you everyone. 睇到好多人都冇用到嗰個耳機啊，其實係咁嘅。我哋點解要呢個問題一係要 yes 呢？因為佢提出呢個嘅審計長咧，其實佢原來就係議員，佢做過眾議員，做過參議員， 所以佢而家轉頭來，佢想審計佢哋，梗係有原因啊！因為佢做過呢個職位，佢就知道嗰個係唔透明嘅，所以希望大家投 yes， 咁咧就會將我哋納稅人嘅錢用到更透明嘅地方。多謝大家。
So the auditor, our current auditor, she served in the House and the Senate. So he's been a state representative and state senator. I think because of that experience, she feels that, there should be more transparency. So if you vote yes on question 1, you just want a Massachusetts that's more transparent to its residents and to its voters.
Thank you.
Should I go?
Yep.
Okay. So Paul and I have been going around the state talking to voters about question 2, and I have to say there's a tremendous amount of enthusiasm, especially from those who are closest to the classroom, teachers and students, but also a lot of parents. And so they really see this as a positive thing for teaching and learning in Massachusetts. We've had more than 20 years with the MCAS graduation requirement to see if it is an effective tool for educational equality and equity, and it has failed the test and taken too much valuable learning time away from our students. So it's time to turn the page on the graduation requirement while keeping the MCAS test in place and our state's high educational standards. So please vote yes on question 2 for all of our students, and thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Everything Lisa said, and I just want to add 3 quick pieces. Again, I just want to reiterate that the MCAS test itself will not be removed, merely the graduation requirement. So all of the diagnostic tools that you can use the test for and all of the incentives that it could be used for to lower tuition at a state school or something will still be in place. It just does not punish those students that get left behind due to learning differences or English as a second language. Another thing I want to address is what you heard in the statement was just that students, will they take it seriously? Well, the MCAS has already given grades 3 through 8, and it's taken very seriously. So it'll be just like that. So 3 through 8 will be just how it is now in 10th grade. And then again, just to reiterate on the only 1% of students stuff, yes, it is 700 students, which we see as 700 too many from the last year. But you got to keep in mind the 16,000 students that are now in this kind of system of testing regime over the next course of the year. They have to do all this remedial class, wasting time from the things they should actually be learning in schools.
Thank you.
So once again, the yes on question 3 is so that more than 70,000 drivers currently permitted by the Commonwealth would have the chance to have a voice and form a union. This would be the first in the nation. Massachusetts would be the first in the whole country to be able to form a union for these drivers, to be able to fight all of the practices that we've been talking about, from rampant deactivation without due process all the way to a declining percentage of the fee. So we ask you all to support us in voting yes on question 3 and following us on our social media and sharing with your networks. That is, vote yes on 3 Massachusetts, vote yes on 3 Massachusetts. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Question 4, voting yes on question 4 makes treatments available for people who desperately need them. The opposition says things that aren't true. The truth is these policies are safe. They have been safe in other states. Massachusetts will not be the first. They've been safe in Colorado. They've been safe in Oregon. They've been safe in other countries. And that is why the doctors who know the most, researchers at Dana-Farber and MGH who have studied these substances, endorse this policy. Please vote yes on behalf of veterans, on behalf of cancer patients, on behalf of all people with severe mental illness who this will benefit. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, everyone, for being here again. And in my closing, I just want to urge everyone to vote yes on 5 to raise the minimum wage for tipped workers and eliminate the sub-minimum wage. Workers across Massachusetts deserve $15 an hour plus tips on top, and they deserve the economic stability that would come with a higher base wage before tips. They deserve to see tips go towards good service instead of subsidizing low wages. And this is also fair for the employers who are already paying a fair wage for their workers who want to see a level playing field. And this is fair for consumers whose tips should go to good service and not as a subsidy for low wages on top. So again, if folks have any questions afterwards, I'm happy to stick around and answer, whether it's English or in Chinese. So I urge everyone again to vote yes on 5. Thank you.
How about a round of applause for our panelists, in favor and against? Thank you all for your,
They're not really
for your
against. They're actually
presentations.
for it.
And thanks to everybody who's joined us in person, everybody who's joined us online. Your participation in events like these helps strengthen our democracy. So thank you for participating. Please, everyone, remember to vote if you haven't done so early, or if you're voting early, please do vote early. And if not, please vote not on November 1st, but please vote on November 5th. So thanks again for everybody. Have a good evening.
And a round of applause for Yawu.
Sure, thank you. Don't go yet. The raffle. So
Let me find the item. Let me double check this item.
okay.